Every single day, your body is either building itself up or breaking itself down. And one of the most underrated decisions you can make, one that costs nothing, is whether or not you go for a walk. Not a jog, not a gym session, a walk. And before you dismiss that as too simple, let's talk about what's actually happening inside your body when you do it consistently, because the research is genuinely surprising. Let's start with your digestive system, because most people never connect movement to gut health. Your intestines rely on muscle contractions to push food through. When you're inactive, that process slows down. Research involving large populations has shown a consistent pattern. People who move regularly have significantly lower rates of colon cancer, and those who are already dealing with a diagnosis show better survival outcomes when they stay active. 30 minutes of walking per day appears to be enough to keep that internal rhythm going. It's a mechanical relationship. Motion encourages motion. Now let's move to something that surprises almost everyone: blood sugar regulation. There's been a tendency to assume that more intense exercise always produces better metabolic results. But a 6-month university trial comparing moderate-paced walkers to runners found that the walkers showed dramatically greater improvements in how the body processes glucose, roughly 6 times greater. The reason is rooted in how different intensities affect insulin sensitivity. Running burns through blood sugar rapidly, which is useful in some contexts, but walking trains the body to regulate sugar steadily over time, which actually reduces the strain on the pancreas. For anyone managing or trying to prevent type 2 diabetes, that's a critical distinction. Here's another area where walking outperforms what most people expect: heart health. The common assumption is that cardiovascular benefit only comes from vigorous exercise, but major health organizations have published findings showing that regular walking produces comparable reductions in heart disease and stroke risk to running. The mechanism involves blood pressure. A consistent walking habit helps relax and widen the arteries, improves cholesterol ratios, and increases circulation, all without triggering the stress hormone response that intense exercise can cause. Your cardiovascular system gets a genuine workout without being pushed into a cortisol spike. Your lungs are next. Sitting for extended periods allows the lower sections of your lungs to remain underutilized. Waste gases accumulate, oxygen exchange becomes less efficient, and over time your respiratory baseline quietly drops. Walking changes that dynamic. As your breathing deepens and your pace increases, the diaphragm engages more fully, ventilating parts of the lung that rarely get attention during a sedentary day. That improved ventilation also supports immune function, since respiratory stress is one of the pathways through which immunity gets compromised. Let's talk about your skeleton, because this one operates on a level most people don't think about. Bone isn't static. It responds to mechanical stress by strengthening itself, a process driven by electrical signals generated when pressure is applied. Walking creates just enough consistent impact to stimulate bone-building cells without the fracture risk that comes with higher impact activities. Organizations focused on arthritis and joint health point to walking as one of the most effective low-risk tools for reducing joint inflammation and maintaining bone density over time. Running can actually exceed the threshold where that process becomes beneficial. Walking stays right in the productive zone. Your spine operates similarly. The discs between your vertebrae don't have a direct blood supply. They depend entirely on compression and release to absorb nutrients and expel waste. Prolonged sitting starves them of that exchange. Walking provides the rhythmic pumping action those discs need. It also strengthens the muscles along the spine that are responsible for posture and long-term structural stability. If you've dealt with chronic back discomfort, consistent walking is one of the few interventions that addresses the actual mechanical cause rather than just masking the symptoms. Moving up to your eyes. This is the benefit that gets the most skepticism, and it's understandable, but the connection is real. A condition called glaucoma develops when fluid pressure inside the eye builds to damaging levels. Research supported by glaucoma-focused health foundations has found that aerobic exercise, specifically moderate-intensity walking, helps regulate that intraocular pressure. High-intensity exercise can sometimes cause pressure spikes. Walking tends to lower and stabilize it. Over time, that consistent pressure regulation contributes meaningfully to protecting the optic nerve and maintaining vision. Now your brain. This is where the research becomes particularly compelling. The hippocampus, the region most associated with memory and learning, is one of the few parts of the adult brain that can physically grow in response to behavior. Studies from major research universities have shown that regular aerobic movement, including walking, increases the volume of this region and triggers the production of proteins that support neural growth and connectivity. The contrast with sedentary behavior is stark. Inactivity has been directly linked to accelerated cognitive decline. Walking doesn't just slow that process, it actively reverses some of it. And then there's mental health. A study published in a well-regarded psychiatry journal followed individuals diagnosed with major depression through a structured walking program. The results were significant. Regular walking produced measurable reductions in depressive symptoms. The biology behind it involves the reduction of cortisol, the hormone associated with stress, and the release of endorphins alongside a protein called BDNF, which supports brain cell survival and mood regulation. Separate research found that walking improved emotional state even when participants weren't specifically trying to influence their mood. It appears to be a built-in reset mechanism that the body initiates when it moves forward consistently. Now, knowing all of this only matters if you actually apply it, and application requires more than good intentions. There are 3 variables that determine whether your walking practice produces results or simply passes time, and you need to get all 3 right. The first is regularity. Your body adapts to signals that are repeated consistently. A walk here and there won't produce the physiological changes described above. The target is daily movement, and if that feels out of reach initially, 3 to 5 sessions per week is a reasonable starting point. 5 minutes done consistently beats 30 minutes done once. The second variable is pace. There's a simple self-test for this. If you can carry on a full, comfortable conversation while walking, you're moving too slowly for cardiovascular benefit. If you can barely get a word out, you've crossed into territory that may not be sustainable. The target zone sits right in between. You can speak in full sentences, but you'd prefer not to. That's the range where your heart is genuinely engaged and the metabolic adaptations begin. The third variable is duration. 30 minutes appears to be the threshold at which most of the documented benefits activate. It doesn't need to happen all at once. 2 15-minute sessions produce similar effects. A practical step goal to begin with is 6,000 steps per day, which is both achievable and sufficient to initiate change. The 10,000 step figure is a useful long-term target, but it shouldn't discourage people who are just starting. A few supporting habits make a measurable difference. Hydrating before you walk prevents the circulation slowdown that comes with dehydration. Using your arms actively, swinging them in rhythm with your stride, engages your upper body and increases calorie expenditure by a meaningful margin. And anchoring your walk to the same time each day, ideally in the morning, helps regulate your internal clock and builds the kind of consistency that actually sticks. The bottom line is this: Walking is not a consolation prize for people who can't run. It is a precisely calibrated, low-cost, high-return health intervention that outperforms more intense alternatives in several categories. The evidence is there. The method is straightforward. What's left is the decision to do it, and to do it every day. If this gave you something useful, go ahead and hit the like button. It helps more people find this information. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because we keep going deeper on the science of how everyday habits reshape your body and mind. And if you've already made walking part of your routine, drop a comment below. Let's hear what's changed for you.